Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Hope everybody has had a nice start to their week. Happy Monday, y'all. We'll be talking both CSU Men's Hoops and CSU Football today. I'll dive into some takeaways from a disastrous showing for CSU Football against UNLV, as well as a really encouraging performance for the Hoops program against a quality Omaha team that objectively isn't going to move the needle, but clearly has a couple of guys that can play. They returned 3 starters from an NCAA tournament team, a team that won both the regular season and conference tournament in the Summit League last year. So a respectable opponent, and I'm having a lot of fun covering the Hoop side. I think it's a nice little reprieve after just getting gut punched, by football week in and week out. But we're going to try and sandwich the less fun portion of the show in between 2 more fun subjects. So we're going to start here by shouting out our guy Trey McBride. Then we'll get into the UNLV takeaways. We'll talk hoops after that. But if you missed it, Trey McBride had 9 catches for a season high, 127 yards and a score on Sunday. The Cardinals kind of got curb stomped by Seattle. Torrey Horton didn't play, which was a bummer. But Trey has now found the end zone in 4 straight games. He has 6 receiving touchdowns this year. He had 6 total in his first 3 seasons combined. So it's really been great to see him finding the end zone with more consistency. It was a frustration going back to his days at CSU. It's funny that you get Jacoby Brissett out there, and now all of a sudden Trey is the most dangerous tight end in the NFL, not just from a target share standpoint, but also from a touchdown producing standpoint. He has 32 catches for 32 catches on 46 targets, 328 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns since Brissett took over for Kyler Murray. Very clearly feasting. Now that they have made that quarterback change, I have no clue what happens moving forward with the quarterback position in Arizona. We'll probably get one of our friends from PHNX on at some point to talk about Trey's big year, as well as, what that might look like moving forward. Trey signed that extension, so unless he gets moved, seems like he's in it for the long haul with the Cardinals. But it's just been cool to see him fully unleashed. And to me, it kind of feels like these next, hopefully at least 5 years, potentially even more, depending on his health and longevity. You never know what can happen in the NFL. But I just feel like these next 5 years or so, there's a chance for him to really be one of the most dominant players in the league, potentially the best tight end in football. Kind of feels like now is the prime of his career. It feels like he is very much poised to, produce in a major way moving forward. And it's cool. We need that, as a fan base. I talked about what that means for the program perception wise. It's obviously the best selling point you can have from a recruiting standpoint outside of just winning a bunch of rings and being a dominant and successful program, is that you have a path to the pros by coming to CSU. And Trey is doing a great job of representing the CSU brand well, as is Torrey Horton. Hopefully we'll see him back on the field soon. It's been fun. I've got both of those guys on my fantasy football team. My team has not had a great year. I also drafted Joe Burrow. I had Malik Neighbors as well, so it hasn't been super fun. But it has been fun to root for my guys and to have them on the team, and it's obviously been cool to see those guys ball out. Certainly hope to see Trey finish out the year strong. The Cardinals aren't going to do much of anything this season. I do wonder if they're going to have a coaching change, but it does feel like there's maybe a chance here for Trey to have a 1,000-yard season, to maybe have a double-digit touchdown season. Would be dope. Would be very, very dope. Now that we had a little bit of sugar, to help the medicine go down. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Saturday's rough showing against UNLV. You could feel it kind of from the beginning, even pregame, just seeing how empty it was. And it honestly filled in better than I would have anticipated. The fans, the students especially, deserve a lot of credit for continuing to show up. I know there are a decent amount of people that are fed up at this point, and I certainly can't blame those folks that would rather spend their Saturdays doing anything else. It is a crazy time commitment, and I've been very open about that. I love college football as much as anybody, and there are times, especially in a year like this, where it's tough to wake up on a Saturday and be stoked to, on my side, spend like 10 hours at the stadium, but on your side of things, you're committing at least 5-6 hours, especially if you're coming from the metro area, when you're factoring in, the commute and all that. It's a commitment, and this team is brutal. After we talk about the matchup, I am going to give a couple of thoughts on whether this is the most disappointing CSU team of the 21st century. I think it's hard to say of all time, just because, again, you've been playing since the 1800s, but at least in the 2+ decades that I've been following the team incredibly closely, it feels like this team let the fans down more so than any team that I can recall. We'll get into that. But man, this was a rough one. It was competitive for about a quarter. It was, I guess, a little encouraging to see CSU go down and put some points on the board. They, at the very least, showed more life in that opening drive against UNLV than they did in 4 full quarters against Wyoming. Aaron in the Toyota chat says it would be the most CSU thing possible that the highlight of this craptacular season is that CSU keeps the streak versus UNM going. I'll give a couple of thoughts on that as well. We'll see 14.5-point dogs when I saw last, and that's absurd considering the Rams have not lost to New Mexico since 2009. Almost 31. I was 14 the last time they lost to the Lobos, but I mean that's where CSU football is at right now, and I think what makes it especially frustrating is how bad the league is. I guess if you're Jay Norvell, you might be feeling a little bit of vindication right now. I'm not going to be that guy that tries to come back 3 weeks later and says, see, this is why you absolutely should have allowed him to finish out the season. Jay's firing is bigger than the context of just this year. We've talked about all of that stuff a million times. That said, when it did happen, I did say the timing of it may be a little bit confusing, and you could make an argument that competitively probably wouldn't do a whole lot to benefit CSU. And since he was fired, the Rams are 0-3. They've been outscored 101-29 since benching BFN. And again, I understand the decision. He was not playing well at all. The passing offense is averaging 185 yards and 1 passing touchdown per game. It's just a lifeless program at the moment, and that's really tough. That's a bitter pill to swallow. This game, again, it was competitive for about a quarter. To me, kind of came down to early in the second quarter. Like, you had an opportunity, you're hanging around a little bit, and you end up turning it over on downs a couple of times. You settle for a field goal too after the big passing play to Rocky Beers. He had a nice game, all things considered. There were a lot of positives to focus on in this one. Rocky Beers and the punter, Brian Hansen, are a couple of them. Jace Bell as well continues to be a cool story. 4 interceptions for a walk-on is pretty incredible. They need to get that guy on scholarship. He certainly deserved it. But yeah, I mean, this game was over by the second quarter, which at least you got to say it was competitive for a quarter, which was not the case against Wyoming. But I mean, you look at the stats here: 571 total yards for UNLV, 292 for CSU. Jaden Thomas, the speed that he has is incredible. 7 carries for 131 yards for him. Should have had 2 touchdowns if it weren't for Jar Malowich, I believe, running him down on that second one. He had a stretch there in the first quarter, I believe it was, where he had like 2 carries for 120 yards. Just nutty stuff. We knew coming in how dangerous he was. We talked about the explosiveness of that offense. We talked about the importance of stopping the run and hopefully, establishing the run yourself and moving the ball with some consistency against a UNLV team that defensively has been Swiss cheese all season, but as was the case against, Washington State and UTSA, some teams that had given up a lot of points. CSU once again made what had been a very awful defense look at least competent. UNLV, you watched them. Air Force shredded them. Miami of Ohio shredded them. Everybody that they've played this season, even Wyoming moved the ball on them pretty well. On the Rams, really outside of that opening drive, and then a couple of small stretches in the second quarter, just weren't able to do anything. UNLV, that run game is solid. You got to credit them. Calandria is a great athlete. He's a dual threat guy. Certainly made CSU pay. I also talked about the importance of keeping him in the pocket. If you did not do that, he was likely to burn you. I shortchanged him in the preseason. I stand tall on everything I've said about UNLV this season, about them being fluky, about their defense being awful, about me not really believing that they're a true contender, although the league just, and we'll get into it when we do the Mountain West Power Ranking, the league is so bad. Maybe you could say they're the top dog at this point just because of how erratic it's been. At the very least, you can say their offense is one of the more consistent elements within the conference this season. They put points on everybody. They are fun to watch on the offensive side. But the Rams, man, they're a tough watch. I don't understand why Jalen Dupree doesn't get more touches. We saw a healthy dose of him on that first drive, really moved the ball well. I know you can't run the ball 3 straight times at it, every single series. You've got to set it up a little bit. You got to have some variety, but it feels like every game we see Dupree get 5 or 6 carries on the opening drive. They move the ball and then they'll pretty consistently go, 2-3 drives without him getting another touch or maybe only 1 or 2 touches. That makes no sense to me. I know you want to prioritize getting the ball to all these guys and they're dangerous. I mean, Marshall is a home run hitter. He's explosive. Avant is a guy who's been productive for you. I get wanting to get them involved as well. Chop Kennard too. But I don't understand with the struggles that you have with the passing game, why you don't lean more into who is very clearly the best offensive player on your team and Jalen Dupree. I don't get it. It's been the case with 3 different play callers now. So that's really been the only consistency with the offense this year, is that the passing offense stinks and that they fail to lean into that ground game. I don't know. Maybe I'm oversimplifying things. Again, I do understand that they're going to stack the box on you, and we've seen that happen at times, even in some games where CSU's run the ball well early. Like that, I think that is the thought process. Playing devil's advocate of why they're trying to mix it up a little bit, but it's just so very clearly what this team is best at, and he is their biggest asset on that side of the ball, at least. And it's just hard to watch. The body language of the receivers is atrocious. I think it was Smitty on Twitter pointed out, watch them in the run game. They pretty much just stand there. There's not an effort to block from a lot of these guys. But I think what's even more confusing and alarming at times is even on pass plays, the guys don't look like they expect to get the ball. They don't look like they're running with intent, like they expect the play to be successful. I guess there's probably some inevitability with that as you continue to struggle week after week. That's just kind of human. But I mean, it kind of looks like the guys are just getting cardio out there, and it's just bad. This is the worst that the offense has been. I mean, you probably got to go. I mean, the Fairchild teams were bad, but they at least would score some points most years. It wasn't like this. I guess 2011, 2010 were pretty rough. Early Fairchild teams, when he still had a lot of those Sunny guys, were still scoring. I feel like those were more like shootout losses than this, which is just bad and boring at the same time, which is pretty much the most brutal combination you can have as a football team at any level. But it's hard to watch, and what you do moving forward, I don't really know about this. I don't really know at this point. I'll give a couple of thoughts on that. I've had a lot of questions about the quarterback position, but let me shout out a couple of partners real quick. I'll get to your questions and comments in the Toyota chat over the course of the show. If I don't get to it right away, we can always star it and come back around. If you wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up on YouTube, I'd appreciate it. But let me shout out those partners. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. If you are looking for gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, look no further than Branded Bills. They have you covered with the best custom headwear. I've been seeing a lot of Branded Bills on campus lately. A lot of CSU hats, saw at least 3 in 2 different styles as well at Moby on Sunday. That was cool. If you're a golfer, if you're outdoorsy, it feels like it's kind of perfect for those type. They've got like the moisture wicking material, super comfy, but also stylish. You know, you can dress it up or dress it down. If you want to check out their on-campus collection, they have a partnership with CSU. I rock them on the show all the time. Got a couple in the back there. Head to brandedbills.com. We love them. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Colorado, you can also stop by your local Dick's Sporting Goods for the hottest apparel around. They've got all the top footwear from brands like Nike, Adidas, Originals, Hoka, DNVR, and more. Score the latest equipment for any of your sporting activities: baseball, football, soccer, basketball, golf. They've got everything you need for tailgating essentials. I love Dick's Sporting Goods. I can easily blow an afternoon, just kind of walking around, looking at all of the random gear. I'm old enough now that not only am I interested in the apparel, but I'm gonna go check out the camping stuff and the grilling section. It's just a good time. If you have success somewhere else and you're able to find something with a lower price, just show them and they'll match it with the best price guarantee. Get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com, because every season starts at Dick's. All right. My guy, TALP in the Toyota chat says, what happened to Justin Marshall? He got a couple carries in this one. Here, let me pull up the stats. He had 7 carries for 27 yards. Dupree had 13 for 56. Avant 5 for 14. Brousseau 7 attempts for 4 yards, although those were all scrambles, not design runs. Curry 1 for 3, and Taj Bullock 1 attempt for -1 yard on the key 4th down there in the first half. Not an exciting reintroduction to the Taj Bullock sub package, which just did not work out. He was billed as kind of a jack of all trades, a Taysom Hill type who they were going to involve in a variety of ways. And we saw him used in a variety of ways in camp. And what it kind of turned into was him being a de facto Wildcat quarterback who would really do one of 2 things every time he was on the field. And it just did not pan out, which is a bummer. I think that there was a world in which that was a fun little wrinkle with the offense, but as you could say with most elements of the offense this year, it did not pan out the way you were hoping on paper. And now we've got 3 weeks left to see kind of what this team is able to do. Feels like 2-10 is very much the most likely outcome at this point. I fully anticipate losing by double digits to New Mexico, which I've never once said that. As bad as it got under Adazio, as bad as it got at the end of the Bobo era, even against, even during the dog days of the Fairchild era, there was never a point I went into a game against New Mexico really with any type of fear in the last 15 years. Again, they have not lost to New Mexico since 2009. They beat them, I believe, 14 straight times. It's one of the crazier stats in sports, really. I mean, to beat a conference opponent, somebody who you're playing on a yearly basis, and it's not as if CSU was world beaters during a large portion of that win streak. I mean, we're talking about the worst part of the Fairchild era. The slow start under McElwain, and then obviously he got it rolling, and then even the sluggish parts of the end of Bobo and throughout the Adazio era. Like there were a few things that were inevitable, and it death taxes and CSU beating New Mexico in football. And again, I would be shocked at this point if the Rams were able to win this one. It would be kind of funny just to be able to say like that they genuinely cannot beat CSU the last year of the Mountain West to go out. Who knows when you'll play them again? But honestly, at this point, like the Rams have nothing to play for. New Mexico's kind of a fun story. I always would want my alma mater to win. I'm never going to root against CSU, but I'm not going to cry myself to sleep. If New Mexico keeps this fun season rolling, I'd like to see them win the conference championship. Why not? I mean, nobody's been through it worse than them when it comes to the portal or coaches getting poached these last couple of years on the hoops and football side. They've had it both ways. So I don't know. That's where we're at. I mean, that's how beaten down I am at this point. I'm just kind of like, what does it matter if the streak to New Mexico ends and Boise likely with a backup quarterback beats CSU by 40, and then Air Force runs for 400 yards on this team. I just want to hit fast forward and be able to get to the point where we're focused on the future and have a little bit of a clearer picture of what the future is going to look like, who the coach is going to be, all of that stuff. As far as who should play quarterback for CSU moving forward, I tweeted this, and I don't mean this with any disrespect towards any of the quarterbacks individually. A lot like what I would say about Tyson Summers. I think they're in a pretty brutal position. I think very clearly CSU needs to upgrade the talent in that room. I would be willing to put Curry out there for the last 3 weeks. If nothing else, he gives you the threat of the scramble, which is just not the case with Brousseau. I will say the interception he threw against UNLV, that was kind of a small glimpse into what has had me be hesitant historically with leaning into him. I just feel like he's been, from what I've seen in practice, which is a small sample size, admittedly, a little bit erratic. Accuracy is kind of all over the place, but he certainly has a good arm. He's able to extend the play. He's a good athlete. I think he possibly has a bright future. I mean, he's a little bit smaller than I would like ideally at the quarterback position. But I mean, again, at this point, we know what it's been with BFN. We know what it's been with Brousseau. I don't think it could get any worse. Why not give the young kid a shot to see what he can do, and not just in garbage time where you kind of have to take all of the results with a grain of salt. And I mean, that's not a great position to be in as a young quarterback, where you're constantly coming onto the field with a dejected team who knows that the game is over. Maybe if he can spark something earlier, you could see the offense have a little bit better of a game. But again, I just keep coming back to, in the modern landscape, the reality is the quarterback room is going to look drastically different next year. I mean, there's a possibility that Curry sticks around, and I'd like to see him do it. But I mean, I think the most likely outcome is it's probably a completely different quarterback room next year, because that's just kind of how it goes when you have a full program overhaul like CSU is about to. And to me, whether it's Brousseau, whether it's Curry, yes, I'd like to see a young kid get an opportunity. Could be fun to see him have a little bit of success. A lot like what I said before, I don't think all of a sudden that's going to fix the offense. Like, that's not all of a sudden going to make this receiving core step up. It's not going to get the play callers to lean into the strengths of the offense. But yeah, that's where we're at with football right now, which is pretty sad. And I think you could make a pretty solid argument that this is the most disappointing CSU football season of the 21st century. I mean, there have been teams that have underperformed before. That 2017 group was really good. They should have made a conference championship, but even they still went 7-5. That 2003 team with a senior BVP, you had David Anderson and all those guys, that team should have been better than they were. That should have been at least an 8-9 win team, if not another double-digit win. I feel like 2023, that group underperformed, should have at the very least made a bowl, but they blew games against CU and Hawaii and UNLV. But to be this bad, to be this awful in a year where the league is downright atrocious, this is the worst the Mountain West has been in 15 plus years, top to bottom. And the Rams don't even look like they belong on the field. I mean, I think if you played Greeley again, you'd lose. Like, that's where CSU is at right now. And I don't know how we fell this far in such a short time. Like, obviously the emotion and everything that's been wrapped up into this year, I understand it. I don't have any expectations over this last month. I think it would be silly to do so. But man, like we haven't, maybe the 2017, which I feel like had talent and probably should have been like a 500 team, if not like a 7-5 team, but to likely go 2-10 and to be in a spot where you should have lost to Greeley, to where you're 2 touchdown underdogs to New Mexico, who's a great story. Don't get me wrong. Again, they're really fun. Hope to see them win the league. I think that'd be the most fun outcome in the Mountain West this year. But I was a freshman in high school the last time that CSU lost to the Lobos. Haven't feared them through all of the struggles they've had in the last 15 years, and to be in this spot is unreal. It's been a full revert back to the end of the Fairchild era in terms of where I'm at from an excitement standpoint. I still feel like the ceiling of the program is higher than it would have been back then, at least in theory, because you have the facilities now, you have the institutional investment, you have the commitment, from your administration, which was certainly not the case for long periods of time with CSU. But to be in this spot going into, a November New Mexico game, it feels like 2009. It feels like 2010. And it's starting to feel inevitable. Like, as Aaron is saying here in the Toyota chat, we're cursed in football. Do we have to make a human sacrifice at this point? He says he'll offer up Mike Rowe. Maybe what is it they do in Major League? They like sacrifice the chicken or something like that. Do we gotta sacrifice a goat? Do we gotta get voodoo involved? I don't know what we gotta do to turn the tide for this program, to get the juju in our favor, but it feels like we're in the conversation with teams like the Cleveland Browns and the Colorado Rockies, unfortunately, another one of my teams, for just the most consistently embarrassing programs, sporting teams in all sports. I mean, like, I get that got a little bit redundant there, but it's just been unreal to see CSU back in this position based on everything that's been committed to athletics over the last 10 to 15 years. The apparel, the facilities, all of it. The NIL money, it's not phenomenal, I get it, but it's not awful either, at least compared to other teams in the group of 5. CSU's fairly well positioned. There's obviously always going to be bigger programs with deeper pockets and unlimited resources, but I just think that it's pretty surreal to look around and feel like the Rams have made absolutely no progress in the last 15 years, and arguably are further away from, I guess, the Power 4 now, is the Power 5 than they had ever been. I'm still intrigued by what could possibly happen with the Pac-12, although seemingly whiffing on Memphis has been a giant glass of cold water on all of this. I really thought they were going to be able to get that done. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen, at least anytime soon. But it's tough, and I'm as worn down throughout this season as I've been at probably any point of my CSU fandom, which, again, I mean, we're talking about 24-ish years, give or take, that I've been locked in, ride or die. And to go from like where we were at this time last year, ahead of the showdown, at least, like once the Pac-12 news was announced, before the showdown was played, the fact that they were hosting it in Fort Collins for the first time since '96, it felt like there was just so much excitement, so much buildup, and man, did that crash and burn in a hurry. So hopefully next year is different. The one good thing, I think, if you're a CSU fan at this point, is you can turn things around quicker than you used to because of the portal. The portal gives, the portal takes, but it allows you, if you make the right hire, as we've seen with a team like New Mexico, to really hit the ground running. And I'm optimistic. I think this is an attractive job. I think if you get the right guy in, everything that's always been an argument in favor of CSU is still true. All of the pieces are in place. It's a sleeping giant. There's no reason that this program can't compete at a higher level, but you got to start getting a more consistent return on your investment. And this has been as bad as it gets. All right, we're going to try and bring the vibe back up. We're going to transition to hoops. We're going to talk about a much more fun team. I tweeted it. I've joked about it. Feels like going to Canvas is like going to the DMV. Whereas going to Moby is like going to our happy place. We'll talk about a really encouraging performance against Omaha and a team that's highly exciting. I'll also give pretty quickly my Mountain West football power ranking. But let me shout out a couple partners and we'll keep the party rolling. Our longtime friends at Coors Light, they encourage you to choose chill. Life is all about choices, my friend. It's all about dealing with adversity. It's all about how you respond when curveballs get thrown your way, when you go 2-10, despite the league being terrible, when you're trying to do an outdoor project and all of a sudden you realize your tool doesn't work, or there's bad weather, being in traffic. It's just the little things. There's so many annoying things that add up in life that get under your skin, that make you a grumpy Gil, that make you no fun to be around. And it's all about trying to avoid that. Do the little things. Get outside, get in the sunshine, get some exercise, go for a walk, talk about sports that are fun with your friends. Then when you're chilling, when you're around good people, crack open an ice cold Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment. You guys know the drill. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Beer. I also want to shout out the homies at Toyota. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. Toyota's built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you're hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. Check out the Land Cruiser. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. They've also got more in low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from. Check out the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. And again, not to be outdone, Toyota SUVs, perfect for Colorado living. You can take them in the mountains. You can take them in the city. It works everywhere. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. Cool. Much love to our friend Azure in the Toyota chat. I agree. Smash that like, dorks. Help us boost for the algorithm, all that fun stuff. Reach more people. Help me make my bosses be happy, which is always the goal. I'd like to remain employed. That is my mentality going into every show. How can I keep my job? All right, let's do our Mountain West football power ranking, and then we'll transition over to hoops, which is far more fun to talk about. Starting at the bottom, I don't think anybody has any questions about what this is going to be, but Nevada 12, CSU 11. If you could rank them lower, I would, but that's where we're at. The most hopeless, the least consistently competitive teams in the conference this fall. I've got Wyoming at 10. From here, it gets really wonky because how do you rank teams like San Jose State, who will beat Hawaii and get smashed the next week? How do you factor in Hawaii losing to San Jose State and then absolutely throttling San Diego State? Boise State, how seriously do we take them without a quarterback? Fresno, are they back now that they've, benched EJ Warner? Utah State seems to be trending the right direction. New Mexico might be the most consistent, but I've got Nevada at 12. I've got CSU at 11. I've got Wyoming 10. I've got San Jose State 9, Air Force 8. From there, I think 7 through 1 legitimately depends on the week. Utah State, I've got them there now, but I don't feel great about it. I feel like they should probably be a little bit higher after what they showed last week. Boise at 6. It feels weird to put them any lower than that. I mean, I get that they're trending in the wrong direction, but still, there's a world in which they kind of figure it out with that ground game. I've got Fresno at 5. Don't feel great about it. I've got New Mexico at 4. I'd like to put them higher, and if they throttle CSU this week, maybe I will. UNLV at 3 because I refuse to rank them any higher out of principle. The defense is not for real, and I just won't accept it. San Diego State, I drop them to 2 after I called them the most complete team in the league for 3 weeks. They get their teeth kicked in by Hawaii. And we're putting Hawaii and the Warriors in that number one spot, mostly for vibes. I just feel like they're the most complete two-way team. I like San Diego State's defense a little bit better. I like Hawaii's offense a little bit better. UNLV is dangerous, but again, they're Swiss cheese. That New Mexico run game might be a strong argument for them being deserving of a top 3 spot. This is the most wide open the league has ever been since I've covered it. This is also the worst that the league has been since I've covered it. John says, wonder how different our team would be if Timmy Chang stuck around. It's a good question. I mean, I don't think it's like the difference between everything working out or not, but very clearly he's got something going. And I think, there might have been a world where he got elevated to offensive coordinator at some point. What would that have done for the offense? It's a fun hypothetical. It's also one that's basically impossible to quantify. But that's our weekly Mountain West Power Ranking. And I want to shout out our awesome producer, Yahir, aka Yaya. He's really done an awesome job updating those graphics, helping us make them pop. We're trying to get more cool stuff like that on the show, trying to up the production value every opportunity that we have. And that's because of an awesome audience like you guys for making it worth the investment. So shout out to all of you as well. Let's talk hoops, because I really genuinely don't want to talk football anymore. I just wish we could fast forward to December, but it is what it is. CSU Hoops coming off of a convincing 97-74 win. Nebraska Omaha, again, if you missed the beginning of the show, they won the Summit League last year. They also won the Summit League tournament. They returned 3 starters. They've got some guys that shoot the ball with confidence. They did not come into Moby Arena shook. They were ready for that moment, that type of atmosphere. It wasn't an overwhelmingly hostile crowd with a Sunday matinee game, but it was also a decent turnout. I was hoping for maybe a little bit better of a showing from the fans, just given that there was no Broncos game on Sunday. But I get it. Like it's tough, and you got to get your chores done and stuff. Take advantage of that. It got kids playing sports. It's not always easy to make it up to Moby, especially if you're from the metro area. But it was decent. It was decent. We'll say that. The Rams have been awesome on the glass. I think that's my biggest team takeaway through these first 2 matchups. They have 19 offensive rebounds through the first 2 games, which is not something we've seen a ton of from CSU over the last couple of years. They've always been a great defensive rebounding team. That was kind of a consistency under Nico Medved. But what we're seeing right now, especially considering CSU struggled on the glass against Creighton as well as their scrimmages, the Rams are plus 43 on the glass through 2 games, getting contributions from everyone as well. They had 5 different players yesterday with at least 4 rebounds. Kerry Booth led the way with 11, his first double-double at CSU. You love to see that. Ali Faroukmanesh said post-game that it's night and day with where Kerry is at right now compared to when he got here in June. I feel like Kerry, as I've said a bunch of times now, is a very raw and intriguing basketball prospect. Despite being at 2 high majors, he's relatively inexperienced, and we're going to have to be patient with him as a result of that. But he's figuring it out offensively, and he's not trying to do too much, which is a big key. He's shooting the ball with confidence from along the perimeter, but the ability to impact the game as a defender and on the glass, that was always going to be easy for him. And we saw that yesterday, 11 rebounds, 13 points as well. Awesome to see him have a double-double. Jorgensen, second straight game with 9 rebounds. He was awesome in this game. Definitely the player of the game for CSU, a career high 25 points, 9 rebounds. Was named the Mountain West Player of the Week this morning after averaging 20 points and 9 rebounds over those 2 wins for the Rams. I thought that was kind of funny. It's certainly a well-deserved honor. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make light of his accomplishments, because he has made a massive leap. I'm actually working on a feature about Jorgensen right now. I think you can make an argument that through a very small sample size, he is the most impressive, or a most improved player, I should say, in the Mountain West to this point. His growth on the glass, what he's showing offensively in the post, it's very clear the the work he's put in the weight room has paid off in a major way. I've also been impressed with the footwork. He's always been skilled, and we saw that he wasn't scared of the moment last year. You know, he hit some big shots and some pretty key wins for CSU. Played a big role, especially in the non-conference slate. But he did see his role regress a little bit as the season progressed last year, and that was largely because he was kind of a defensive liability. Also, he struggled to score in the paint against, you know, some of the bigger, more athletic teams in the Mountain West. And I don't know if, you know, Jorgensen's going to be quite as dominant against a team with the length of, say, San Diego State. But you can see it physically. He's made a leap. He looks like he's moving really well. You can see the muscle he's put on, and you're not able to knock him off of his spots as easily, especially down low. He is the one dictating the tempo and like the pace of play when the ball is in his hands. It's been cool. He's just playing with a different level of assertiveness and confidence, and his development has been very, very impressive to see with CSU this year. And I think if he can continue to play like this, especially as, you know, you get Rashawn Bemba back, I think CSU ceiling on both ends is only going to be elevated. And you know, I talked a lot about how big it was to have that continuity in the front court, just because it's not the easiest system to play in. And the fact that we're seeing Jorgensen make this leap, we haven't even gotten a chance to see Bemba yet. And then I think we'll see more of Jap over the course of the season. He's battled some injuries in the preseason. And Kerry Booth on top of that, who, you know, as Mile High Minute says, he just looks different, has a different level of athleticism. He's a different caliber of prospect. You know, the tools are all there. Now, whether it's all going to come together is still TBD. But Booth's athleticism, it just puts him in a different conversation as far as what he can be. But we're seeing all these other guys make a leap too. And it just makes me wonder, like, how good can this CSU team really be in year one under Ali? I felt like they were undervalued coming in just because the quality of the coaching staff. I didn't feel like that was valued or factored enough into all of the preseason conversations and stuff like that. I understood why people had some doubts about whether CSU was still going to be in the mix. It's hard to replace a player of Neat Clifford's caliber, and then, you know, on top of that, you also have to lose, you know, J Lake, and you lose Cayenne and Croc to the portal. Like you lost so many key pieces from that team last year. But I mean, as we've seen now, this is a program that just kind of keeps on chugging year after year. They've done a really good job of finding the right profile of transfer that they can kind of plug and play. It takes a little bit of luck, but I think a big part of it too is they're signing guys that are good basketball players, but they're finding the right fits personality wise. They're finding guys that will buy into what these coaches are preaching and you know, what they're selling here. And it helps, you know, when you have guys that haven't necessarily thrived at through this point of their career. You know, if you're Rex Steiner, if you're Kerry Booth, obviously you have an incentive to buy in and do what this staff is preaching, because you're hoping to develop individually and you're hoping to, you know, produce and stay on the floor and all that. But I just feel like for them to be this potent offensively this quickly and to be sharing the ball the way that they are. I mean, you see the assists and everything, the way the offense is functioning. And again, it should only get more dangerous as they add more wrinkles to it. It's really intriguing. I will say I still feel like that defense is going to dictate this group's ceiling in the end, and that's almost always going to be the case. And I didn't love everything we saw defensively over the first 5 to 8 minutes. I mean, Omaha, they hit some tough shots in this game. You got to credit, what was the white boy's name? Osborne, 9-18 from the floor, 6-12 from 3-point. He was letting the crowd hear it, you know, pounding his chest, screaming out every time he made a bucket. It was honestly fun to watch. That's what you should do if you're a player at a smaller school and you're getting buckets in a D1 team's gym, or in a bigger D1 team's gym, I should say. Omaha's a D1 program. But I feel like, especially once that second unit came in, once we saw JoJo McIver and Jace Butler too, I really felt like the defense locked in a little bit along the perimeter. They still hit some tough shots, but CSU did a better job of making them work for them. And then kind of as the game progressed, some of those shots that were going in early started to miss. And instead of being, like a 10, 12-point game like it was for a lot of the afternoon, that's where we saw the Rams really start to expand the lead and kind of, smother the Mavericks over the course of the game. It was a really nice showing against a quality team. We're going to keep talking about it. CD Sticks in the Toyota chat says, just catching the end of the show. Thanks for suffering through CSU football so we don't have to. We got to do what we got to do, right? Let me shout out a couple partners. We'll keep this rolling. I want to talk to you about Brunt Workwear. Brunt's best-selling Marin work boots are not only built for the toughest job sites, but they're completely waterproof, whether it's rain, mud, standing water. You're going to stay dry. That's huge in Colorado. We get a lot of snow, obviously. I most certainly am not somebody who works in the trades or anything like that. I'm not a guy who's out, working with his hands, but I know so many of you guys are. And that's why Brunt is really cool. You can save $10 with the code DNVR on their awesome boots. They're stylish, but they're high performance wear. I think that's the big key. A lot of these brands that traditionally had been known for, being dependable for a lot of blue collar workers have leaned into style these days. And they aren't necessarily keeping the standard that was once set, when it comes to quality. That's not the case with our friends at Brunt. They're perfect. We've got a couple of them on campus. They're cool. The founder, Eric Gerard, he grew up blue collar, started Brunt Workwear after his friends in the trades kept telling him how the big brands had stopped listening. They hadn't changed in 100 years. They'd sold out. His buddies encouraged him to start a brand, and that's what they've done. With temps dropping and the holidays coming up, it's time to treat yourself or the hardworking man in your life or woman to real comfort. Skip the throwaway gifts and get him something built to last. Brunt Workwear. Our listeners get $10 off their entire order with the code DNVR at checkout. That's bruntworkwear.com. Use that code DNVR. Order today. Let them know you heard it here on the show. I also want to tell you about Christie Sports. If you are looking to hit the slopes this season, but don't own your own gear, now is a perfect time to get full season rentals with our friends at Christie Sports. You can get 20% off of the rentals when you book online and you use our code DNVR20. Look, guys, it's one of the things that's really tough about getting into snow sports if you don't have that background is the equipment's expensive. It's already expensive enough getting a lift ticket these days. Pretty much got to give them an arm and a leg just to get on the mountain. But maybe you don't want to necessarily commit to buying all that equipment right away. I'll be honest, I got into skiing a ton in college. And then when I got on the college hoops beat, I wasn't able to go with as much consistency. Well, now I have these skis and boots that I bought 10 years ago, and I spent all this money on them, and I really don't need to own. I could have just rented for a season like our friends at Christie Sports offer you. It's risk-free booking. You can, cancel free within a couple of days. That's always convenient. Get 20% off your season rentals when you book online or with the link in the comments. Use the code DNVR20. You need to book before November 23rd for that discount. Outside is better with expert service and advice in every store. Okay. Aaron says covering CSU football right now is very much working in the trenches, at least mentally. Physically, I don't know, other than the toll it's taking on my soul each and every day. It's probably not great for the blood pressure either. I don't think being a CSU football fan over the last 20 years has done anything to prolong my life or make me a healthier individual. That's for sure. Getting back to kind of what stood out from CSU Hoops against Omaha on Sunday, we talked about the rebounding, which has been great. We've talked about some individuals who were really encouraging. Jorgensen continues to ball out. If he plays at this level all year, I feel like this team's ceiling is pretty high, especially in a year where maybe the league isn't terrific. I do think there's been a lot of overreactions to some kind of fluky results. Even Boise State, they responded pretty nicely against a good Utah Valley team after that disappointing showing against Hawaii Pacific, a school I'd never even heard of. But I think one of the reasons that you have to take CSU for real, despite the fact that they don't have Anik Clifford. They don't have an Isaiah Stevens. The bench is terrific. I mean, they could do a full hockey sub if they wanted to, 5 for 5. The bench was awesome in this game, 28 points, provided a big defensive spark, as I talked about with JoJo and Jace Butler, especially. I really liked what those guys showed defensively. Offensively, I've really liked the mentality. I like that it's been a diverse output. Jorgensen has certainly done his part, but I mean, the other night, you saw Rex Steiner and you saw Pasquarelli shoot the ball really well. Those guys a little bit quieter offensively in this one. Not a bad day by any means. Pasquarelli hit some shots early, and Rex Steiner hit some shots late to close it out. Pasquarelli's still with 15 points and 6 and 9 from the floor. Maybe you'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive at times, which is something Ali talked about. But I like that you're getting a little bit of something from everyone right now. Augie had 13 points. He only had 2 field goal attempts because he did his part to get them to hack him up. He's got some JJ Avila to him, and it's funny. He was a guard in high school. He grew 3 inches going into college, and you can see that. You can see that with the way he handles the ball. He's a great passer, but he is 6'8". He's bigger than Joel Scott, which is funny. I think visually it doesn't necessarily look like that at times. Plays bigger than his size, and he's really just a heady, smart individual who you cannot speed up. I think he is going to be a really big factor for this team. Really loved what we saw from him. Jevin Muniz, who I can now say his last name after getting that. I just had it as Muniz in my head for so long that it kind of broke my brain on the show the other day. But Jevin Muniz, 8 points from him, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, just another solid kind of consistent outing out of him. This team's got a lot of versatility. They're playing with the right mentality. They're sharing the basketball offensively. They're getting high value looks as well. There's not a lot of jacking up selfish looks or just dumb low percentage shots. It tends to be open threes from the perimeter or looks at the rim, which is why CSU is producing in the paint. I've liked to see that. They're averaging 25 points in the paint over the first 2 games and almost 32 free throw attempts. That's a mentality. You're not going to get 30 free throw attempts if you're not making a concerted effort to work the paint, to put pressure on defense, to not rush shots up. Being patient is a skill offensively, and we saw a lot of that. Jorgensen and Augie especially, just I'm gonna upfake, get you in there. Oh no, there's body contact, easy 2 free throws. I've just really liked the decision making, and we're seeing good shot making too. That helps as well. 44% from 3-point, 55% from the floor. Really solid all around. To score 98 points and 97 in the first 2 outings of the Farokmanesh era, to be a top 10 team in the country in terms of offensive efficiency. I think Ken Palm had CSU 2 of the top 10 most efficient offensive games in the country have been CSU to this point. It's been really exciting. And I think as, Pasquarelli shoots the ball with more confidence, as Kerry Booth continues to develop, as they get Augie more and more involved in kind of a de facto Joel Scott type role, as we see JoJo, become a bigger part of the picture, there is a chance for this team to be quite good in the Mountain West. I'm excited about the possibility. I am going to play a couple of post-game clips here. I did want to throw out just a couple of key stats. The Rams 28 of 33 at the line. Not only are they getting there, but they're hitting their free throws, especially in the second half. 16 of 18 in the second half. Second straight game shooting north of 35% from 3-point and making 10 or more threes from beyond the arc, but they're also plus 10 in second chance points. So they're, mopping up some of those opportunities when they're not converting initially. The Rams average 1.492 points per possession in this win over Omaha. 1 is solid. Anything over 1.2 is phenomenal. They were at basically 1.5 as they were in game 1 as well, which is just crazy. Again, the efficiency with which this group is playing right now is pretty unreal. And if they just limit the turnovers a little bit, that's really the one nitpick you could have. They've had some sloppy turnovers, and that's going to happen with a team with this many moving parts, with this many new pieces. I mean, it's not like it's been awful. 10, 11 turnovers, they've been fine. But once, if they could cut that down to more like 5, 6 a game with how they're shooting the ball, with the mentality, with the way they're sharing it, this group's going to be dangerous. And I'm really excited to see, especially how a couple of these individuals continue to progress. I want to play a couple of post-game clips. Here is Ali Farokmanesh talking about a monster showing from Kyle Jorgensen. Again, he had 25 points and 9 boards against Omaha.
If that career high just keeps going up, I'll add whatever I need to. But yeah, he played great. Their ball screen coverage, we thought we could get him shots, and we did. But I mean, we talk about this all the time. It's not the amount of shots that you shoot; it's how efficient you are. And you scored 25 points on 12 shots only. That's impressive. That's hard to do, and I think that's what we've always been good at here is the level of efficiency that they score the ball with. And I mean, Kyle could have shot 10 more shots if he wanted to, the way he was playing the game, but I mean, that's why he's such a good teammate too. He didn't force a single shot. There wasn't a shot that he shot all night that I have any qualms about. He probably should have shot some more, to be honest.
He came in and he talked about what he learned last year, being more physical, knowing what his role had to be with Rashawn being out. What did you see that had you kind of spark that he was going to take not just the next step, but a rather big one?
Yeah, I think he just showed up every day. And I think it's as simple as that, the consistency with how he showed up to practice, how he showed up to the weight room, how he took care of his nutrition. It's those 1% differences that you don't necessarily see unless you're with somebody for every single day. It's kind of like watching your kids grow up a little bit. Like, you guys all see it probably more drastically. We don't notice it because I'm with them every single day. But then when these performances happen the way they do, it's just a credit to him showing up every single day and sticking with it.
Really, really encouraging start to the year for our man Kyle Jorgensen. If he keeps this up, look out. Here is Ali talking about Kerry Booth, who Ali said is night and day since coming to campus in June.
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day. And it was funny, we were talking in the locker room. I'd love to go back and watch a scrimmage from July and just see what it looks like today and kind of show those guys that too, because sometimes, just like them, like, they don't realize how much they're growing because they're day to day. But the growth that he's made, not only from an offensive standpoint, for him to put up 13 and 11, and I thought he played the right way the whole night. So it's cool for Kerry too, like, to be honest, to just be in that situation that he's getting to play and make an impact while he's playing.
Has that been impressive? Just because, I mean, it could be very easy to come in and try and do too much given his history and having not worked out at old spots.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the whole group. Like, I feel like they've all bought into a role. They're all sacrificing something, and we talk about that a lot. At the end of the day, for this team to reach its ceiling, they're all going to have to sacrifice something. And tonight, Kerry played more than Augie did. Obviously, Kyle played 30 minutes tonight, the most as a starter, and it's going to change night to night. And how they deal with that and how they're willing to sacrifice for each other, that's going to determine how far we go as a team.
All right, always enjoy Ali's perspective. He's very introspective. He's always great with the media, gives thoughtful responses. And it's fun to talk about a team that's winning. It's a little bit easier to give good post-game quotes when you're having success. I've got some good questions here in the Toyota chat before we get going. Quinn says, who goes back to the bench when Bemba comes back? That's a good question, one I've been thinking a lot about myself, because I do think Bemba, throughout his career, has been a very instrumental key for CSU, especially defensively. His strength down low is just huge. That said, it's gonna, I mean, you can't take Jorgensen off the floor. I think you try and slide him to the 4, and then it's gonna limit into some of the minutes that some of these other guys are playing. I think it means Jorgensen's probably not going to play 30 minutes like he did in this one, but it is going to be difficult. I do think it probably limits how much Japa is out there. And then, with some of these other guys, it kind of depends on what's working. I think the cool thing is the versatility they have with the guys between the 2 and the 4. I mean, you can put Augie out there, who's going to play much bigger than his size. If you wanted to put him as, a 3 or a 4, you can go a little bit smaller at times. Kerry Booth, obviously, is going to play quite a bit. It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have. We'll say that. I want to shout out Rachel for becoming a DNVR supporter. Thanks for becoming part of the DNVR supporters club. You get access to really cool emojis and unique content on the DNVR YouTube channel. It's a great way to support what we're doing. Our guy TALP says, what do you think about the lack of tough opponents on paper in our schedule? I think it makes sense for a first-year staff. I know they talked to some other teams. I think there was basically one more high-quality opponent they would have liked to have gotten on the schedule that didn't really work out. But you do have some opportunities, hopefully, at the MTE. hopefully CU will hold up their end of the bargain metric wise, and then that could potentially be a quality win at home, assuming, you do in fact win that game. Usually the home team plays better. But that's, I will say, like, I kind of expected this team to have a nice start. It's why I thought, 9-2, even like 10-1 could be within the realm of possibility for the Rams in the non-conference slate. I think we'll see some ebbs and flows, and there's going to be some struggles. The beginning of the conference slate especially is tough, but this team is grown with confidence. And again, like, defense is going to dictate their ceiling, but with what they're showing offensively, I'm pretty dang excited based on the fact that we're only 2 games in the Farouk Manesh era, and it really doesn't feel like they've skipped a beat. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Shout out to everybody for rocking with us live on a Monday. I'll be going live again Friday. We'll have more basketball to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about the New Mexico matchup as well, though we're going to try and have some fun these last couple of weeks and not just completely lean into the misery. I mean, the games do still count, and obviously, like, we'll be watching them, so we're not going to ignore them, but I don't know if we need to talk about it for 60 minutes either. Shout out to all of you. Shout out to Yaya, our super producer. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.